All right, peeps. This is going to be a really short presentation on protein, but I think it's an important one because there are so many misconceptions and theories and approaches out there about protein, being on a low protein diet versus a high protein diet and all that kind of stuff. So let's talk about protein. All right, so protein is one of the macronutrients that we consume in our food, along with fats and carbohydrates. When we digest proteins, they are broken down into amino acids, and those are used for lots and lots and lots of important functions in the human body. And these are some of those functions. They're part of the structural components in most of our body tissues. They provide strength and shape to skin, tendons, membranes, muscles, organs, and bones. They make up all of the enzymes in our body that produce all of the chemical reactions. And I don't know if you remember from biology class, but everything in the body is a chemical reaction. So if we didn't have those enzymes, none of that would work. They make up some of the hormones that help regulate body processes. They help maintain balance, volume, and composition of body fluids. They act as buffers to help us maintain an acid-base balance of our body fluids. So for all of you folks out there drinking alkaline water, thinking that that's going to help you alter your acid versus alkaline composition, yeah, protein's going to be a better bet to do that for you. They transport substances like fats, vitamins, minerals, and oxygen around the body. They're very important to our immune system because that's what makes up the antibodies that our body makes to inactivate and fight pathogens. A specific protein called fibrin helps us create blood clots, keep us from bleeding out. A specific protein called collagen helps us form scar tissue, and collagen's also important for strengthening like tendons and cartilage and muscles. And then a specific protein called opsin supports our vision. So, as we said, proteins are made up of amino acids, and those are organic compounds that contain nitrogen. So all amino acids contain nitrogen. And while there are over 500 amino acids found in nature, the human genetic code utilizes around 20 to build the proteins that we use for our cells. And here's a list of those, the most common 20 that we use. It's important to note that different amino acids are used for different functions. So for example, methionine and cysteine both contain sulfur, and so they are actually broken down and provide building blocks for like DNA and proper cell function. Tyrosine provides chemicals for our nerve cells. Lysine is needed for growth, muscle function, helping to form carnitine and then transporting fats across cells. And then glutamic acid, or also called glutamate, is the most common stimulating neurotransmitter in our central nervous system. So each of these amino acids has a distinct and important function. About half of these are termed essential, and that means that our bodies cannot make them, so they must be obtained externally through our diet. The essential amino acids are those 9, and then arginine is actually essential for children, but as we grow, we develop the ability to make arginine. Another amino acid that's not listed in the list of 20 is taurine. It's very important. It's actually not used to build other proteins, but its functions are used in like forming bile acid, which is necessary for fat digestion, helps regulate minerals and maintain electrolyte balance. And then it also has some support for the central nervous system. It is essential for children. They can't make taurine. And then it's conditionally essential for adults if we're under stress or during an illness. We can't produce it as efficiently. Right, so a protein deficiency can develop when our diet provides either too little protein on a regular basis or it doesn't have enough of those essential amino acids. And the USD RDA has a minimum of 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight for adults. But there are several assumptions associated with this. So they assume that the person is generally healthy, that they have no unusual metabolic or genetic needs, and that the body will use the protein efficiently. Not always the case. So adequate protein, at a minimum, should be 1 gram per kilogram of body weight, and preferably we should start at 1.2. And for those of you, us, who aren't really big on that metric system, you can convert a pound to a kilogram by multiplying it by 0.45. So our requirements will also vary based on those individual characteristics. So age, gender, height, and activity level are going to affect how much protein an individual needs. And it can range from anywhere from 1.2 to 1.8 grams. Here are some of the situations that will increase our daily requirement. If you're an athlete or doing rigorous physical training, persons fighting an infection or disease, persons healing from an injury, and pregnant or lactating women. And then if you don't want to do the math, then this is a link to a really good site that you can put in some information about yourself, and this little calculator will tell you what your daily protein needs are. So what are the sources of protein? Well, first one is animal sources, and animal and seafood protein sources tend to have a higher quantity of protein per serving than other sources. And here's examples of animal sources of protein and how much protein they have in them for like a 3.5 ounce serving. So red meat typically has 25 to 28 grams, poultry 26 to 28 grams, fish anywhere from 19 to 24, other seafood like some of your shellfish 15 to 20. Eggs, a large egg has 6 grams of protein. Excuse me. Yogurt's going to vary. Greek style yogurt is going to have like double the protein content of regular yogurt. And then cheese is also going to vary by type. So your harder aged cheeses like Parmesan or Romano are going to have higher protein content than softer cheeses. And plants also have protein. A lot of people, when they think of protein, they automatically think of meat or animals, but there's a lot of plants that are good sources of protein too. Now, they do tend to have lower quantity of protein per serving size. But here's some of the plants that can provide decent amounts of protein. So a cup of lentils or beans, 15 to 18 grams. A large avocado may have 4 to 5. An ounce of peanuts, 7 grams. An ounce of other nuts like almonds, pistachios, cashews, 4 to 6 grams. A tablespoon of miso or natto, 4 grams or 2 tablespoons. This is a fermented soybean product from Japan. A cup of asparagus, it has 3 grams. A cup of broccoli or cauliflower, 2 to 3. A cup of mushrooms, 2. And then your dark leafy greens also have a gram of protein for a cup. So your animal, dairy, and seafood protein sources are considered complete proteins, and that means that they provide all of those essential amino acids, those amino acids that we can't produce ourselves and we have to get from food. There are fewer plant foods that are complete proteins. Some of them that are like your fermented foods, like that natto, miso, tempeh, spirulina. Some of your seeds, like pumpkin, hemp, and quinoa. And then amaranth, which is a grain, and lentils are complete proteins. But you can combine some of your plant foods to make complete proteins. So you can combine like whole grains and legumes, nuts and whole grains, legumes with seeds, vegetables with nuts, or vegetables with whole grains. And as long as you are consuming these different plant sources in the same day, they don't necessarily have to be the same meal, they will still represent complete proteins. So most digestion of proteins occurs in the stomach, and the absorption of protein occurs in the small intestine. Inefficient digestion and absorption may occur for a couple of things. Individual genetics, there are some inherited metabolic disorders, and also we might not have enough of the appropriate enzymes to digest proteins. It's actually common for enzyme production to decline as we age, which is why a lot of older people find it harder to digest proteins and fats because they require more complex digestion than carbohydrates. Those inherited disorders usually relate to a specific amino acid rather than all protein in general. They typically present shortly after birth. If we suspect that condition, then a lot of babies are tested to see if they have it. They can be addressed with special diets, medicines, or supplements. And a lack of enzymes can be addressed by supplementing with those protease enzymes, or we can use certain herbs and botanicals that stimulate our production of the enzymes. We can actually improve our digestion a lot by doing a few lifestyle practices. One, thoroughly chewing our food. I know it's tedious to sit there and chew your food 30 or 40 times, but it definitely helps with digestion and absorption. Not eating meals that are too large, and trying to eat in a stress-free setting. All right, so to recap, proteins are needed for many, many functions in the human body. We have to consume essential proteins because our bodies cannot make them. Animal sources are complete proteins. Many plant foods are also good sources of protein, and we can combine them to make them complete proteins. And then digestive issues can usually be addressed so that we can digest and absorb our protein as efficiently as possible. All right, so hopefully that clears up some misconceptions about protein. And one of the things you can do for yourself to get you to optimal health it's really easy to figure out what your protein needs are every day and make a plan to get that protein. And it will go a long way to resolving whatever ails you. Thanks for listening. See you next time.